Alright, euphonium and tuba players. This is your video for oiling your valves. I'll do both of your instruments together. Sometimes, of course, yes, euphonium is called baritone, so this would also apply to you if you're a baritone player. But for euphonium and tuba players, this is for you. When we're oiling our valves, if you're playing ever and you notice your valve is kind of slow coming back up again, or if it's starting to stick, or if it's really hard to press down, then it's time for some valve oil. And this is something that you'll regularly have to do for valve instruments and for brass instruments, just to make sure that everything's going to be easy to press down so that your instrument will work for you right away when you need to press those different valves. Okay, so I'm going to demonstrate for you on my euphonium for today. And there's always there's going to be some numbers stamped on those valve casings where your valves live, just in case you ever get these mixed up. That's going to help you to remember. So this is valve number 1 is always closest to the bell, and valve 3 is always furthest away from the bell. And there should also be some numbers that are actually stamped on there. There should be a 1 and a 3, and then of course the middle one would be valve number 2. That also goes along with finger 1, finger 2, finger 3 that go on your valve. So finger 1, 2, 3. And that directly lines up with the numbers on your valves as well. Okay, so I'm going to show you on valve number 3 as a demo. I'm going to undo the cap. So the valve cap is the part that actually screws the valve onto my instrument. So you always want to undo the cap of your valve. You never want to twist the top of your valve, just because then if you do that, things can start to turn around inside and you can lose little pieces and your valve can fall apart. So be very careful not to turn the top of your valve, just the cap that connects it to your euphonium or your tuba. So you undo the cap all the way so it's loose, and then you're going to pull your valve straight out. And I'm also going to tell you a little bit about what's in here. There's actually a spring inside of this valve casing, and the spring is for when you push your valve down. The spring is actually going to push it back up again. So if you're putting your instrument down while you're oiling your valves, you never want to flip it upside down, because then these springs are going to fall out and kind of bounce away and you might lose it. So these springs are very important because they're what makes your valve work. So be very careful when you are oiling your valves not to tip your instrument upside down. Make sure that you don't lose those springs that are inside of your instrument. Okay, I'm going to very carefully just lay this down on the floor while I oil my valve. And you're also going to notice underneath that cap, there is actually a number stamped on the top of your valve that's underneath that cap. So if I lift this up and kind of take a look on my valve, I can go, oh, hang on, there's a number 3. I don't know if you can see that, but there is a little number 3 stamped underneath that little felt there. So if I ever get my valves mixed up, I can always go back and check too and make sure that my valves are in the right spots on my instrument when I go to put them back. Every valve is specific. The pattern of holes that open up the slides and the tubes on your instrument are going to line up with those holes. So you want to make sure the right valve is in the right place. Okay, you're going to then take your bottle of valve oil, and I definitely recommend synthetic valve oil. If you have not already gotten a bottle of valve oil, make sure it's synthetic. This is going to love your instrument, and your instrument is going to love it. It's not going to evaporate quickly like normal valve oil does. It's going to last a lot longer, and you're not going to need as much of it. So definitely get yourself some synthetic valve oil if you have access to that. This is going to make your instrument play a lot better and a lot easier to press your valve. So then you're going to take your valve oil. Don't drop it on the floor like I did. And then you're going to hold your valve sideways, just over the floor, over a garbage can. And then the whole length of your valve, you're just going to squeeze some oil all the way down the whole length of your valve. Not in the holes, right? Not in the bottom, just all the way down that whole length of your valve, okay? It might drip, that's okay, that's normal. Give it a shake to get rid of the drips. And then, since this is valve 3, I'm going to put it back into the 3rd valve casing where it belongs. And I'm going to kind of line it up, pop it back in there. And then the important thing is there's a little notch on my valve. Sometimes they're plastic. This one happens to be metal. You can kind of see that little notch on that one side of my valve that kind of sticks out a little bit, that has to line up with this little groove inside of my valve. So in order for this valve to be in the right direction, I need to line up that little notch in my valve along to into that groove that is carved away inside of the valve casing. So you always want to make sure that that's lined up. You never want to force your valve in. So if you're forcing it and it's not going in the right way, that little notch is not in the groove. You have to kind of take it out, reposition it, and then it's going to be in the right place. And you can hold your valve down and just screw that the case or the valve, oops, the valve cap back into place all the way down. Try to make sure it's not crooked, so it's cross-threaded. Make sure it's straight up and down. And then tighten that up all the way. And then give your valve a few wiggles up and down. And you'll notice, wow, look how fast that is now. It's nice and greased up, so it's ready for when I need to use it. It's going to pop back up again very easily. Okay, so you can do that again for each of your valves if you ever need to. And then that's basically it. And then you're ready and you're set to play. Okay, if you ever have any troubles, always come to me. I can help you fix whatever problems you might encounter. But biggest thing is don't lose those springs, and good luck with oiling your valves.